Yeah.
Hmm.
So I want to congratulate you on your kill or your hunt.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was something else. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to tell us about your hunt,
You want
your latest one?
you want the latest one first?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're about
or
an
you know
hour.
what?
I think we
Or
could finish up. I think we're at an hour, right? We're about an hour.
close to, yeah, close
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. We could finish it off with.
So,
yeah.
um, this year I happened to draw this phenomenal tag. This really good tag in Nevada.
Yeah, that's what you're waiting
Nevada.
for,
So
right?
like, if you're like not familiar with hunting, like there's a, you can't just go out there and shoot whatever you want. You have
It's called
to,
poaching.
yeah, it's poaching. You have to get a tag, buy a tag over the counter, or you have to draw a tag in these like more premier units or just a more state that they allot less tags to the the residents and non-residents. Just because like wildlife game biologists, they go in every year. They'll go in there and they'll decide how many
How
elk
many?
are is this unit or this area can hold, and how many that they need to kill. To
Hmm.
keep the population and herd like healthy. And Nevada is like one states where uh, the biologists and the game officials, they decide they want this area to be a super high quality hunt where there's going to be a low amount of hunters and there's going to be a lot of older age class bulls and or elk or deer. And so what that means is like when you go out to in the field and you're going on your hunt, you're going to see a lot more animals with bigger antlers. They're older, and for guys like most hunters, like they, not I would say most, but there's a lot of hunters will look for the oldest animal in that unit to get the biggest antlers, and also like the older these animals get, they've already spread their genes. They've already bred a bunch of animals and they've already
Mm.
have their genes out there, and they're gonna bully like the smaller animals, and not let them breed and stuff like that. So it's like it's beneficial to take that older animal, not just to have the bigger antlers, but it's beneficial for the
Diversity.
herd. So that way, those younger animals can start breeding and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Nevada is notorious for being one of the hardest um, states to get a tag in. And I've only been hunting for like maybe 5 years, or for about 5 years now, and I've been applying for Nevada for 3 years. And you're likely to get a tag there in like once in every like 20 to 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 20 years is like conservative, even. Then you could start maybe thinking like maybe I'm going to draw a tag now. And I drew it on my third year applying.
Nice.
And so I drew this unit that only gave one tag to residents that don't live in that state. So usually how states work, or how the system works, is each unit or state, or each unit, they'll allot a certain amount of tags for people who live in that state and a small percentage of tags to people who don't live in that state. So since I don't live in Nevada, I can only I can only get in that group that's applying for that small non-resident tag group.
You're going
And
up against everyone from the
everyone,
country.
Everybody in the
even.
country.
And so like if you apply, you don't get a tag that year, you get what's called a bonus point. So it means that next year when you apply, for each point you have, more your name's going into the hat that many times,
Mm-hmm.
and you have like in that raffle you have more opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to get that tag. And so in this unit there was actually one non-resident tag, and I drew that one non-resident tag. It's like equivalent of like hitting the lotto,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's like this unit's known for having like some of the largest antlered elk in the
Jeez.
state. So prior to this, I've only archery hunted elk twice before, and it was both times were in Idaho, and it was like over the counter units where you just go and buy a tag, and there's like thousands of people. So like that tag, I think there was 1,000 people in that area that I'm allowed to hunt in.
Mm-hmm.
And so this tag that I drew in Nevada, there was 13 people, 13
Jeez.
tags.
Damn.
Yeah. Heck
So
yeah.
it's like you could see like the huge
Yeah.
contrast. So when you're going out there, these animals are like less harassed, and there's like 1,000 square miles. So that in that time we're in Nevada, I didn't see anybody. So I scouted for 4 days in July. So me and my buddy went out there and we like try to relocate elk in this area, and we found quite a few good bulls. So we went out there the first day. I think we found like three like really big antlered elk in this area, and we moved around and like we didn't see as many elk in the other areas. So when we came back, we
Stuck to that area.
yeah, so we decided to go to that area the first day. You know, once I was allowed to hunt. So when you draw tag, you're only allowed to hunt a certain time period, a certain weapon, and a certain type of animal. You know, so like my tag was a bull elk, so I'm only allowed to kill a male elk in that unit. And there's a lot of rules and regulations, like the time you're allowed to hunt. You know, the weapon of take. You know, like how much pounds your bow is and whatnot, and what like broadhead. There's a lot of details, but yeah. So when we went back the time when we were allowed to hunt and stuff, we did not find any elk in the spots that we saw them in July when we went. So kind of like threw a wrench in our plans, you know. And I'm not just like I'm gonna be honest. Like I don't usually feel like a lot of pressure, but since like this tag was so rare and there's like so much expectations on this tag, like I started to feel it myself, you know, like up leading into it, you know, like I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to do like these weighted hikes, you know, constantly, and making sure I'm like super consistent with my weighted hikes, shooting my bow. Like I was shooting my bow out like more than I've ever shot, you know.
Like every week, right? You were
Yeah.
like out the range.
Every week I was out in the range at home, like I was shooting my target in like my house, you know, I had a target in my house, and I'm just, you know, doing my technique, you know, shooting every day. And
It's like dry firing.
yeah,
Or at least not a bow, but I mean like with pip.
yeah, I
Like,
was shooting my bow into the target, so I had an
Yeah.
arrow on it, but I was shooting the target. So I was just like kind of going over to, they call it blank barrel shooting. So like I'm just doing my technique, only the mechanical part of it, you know, or I guess the body mechanics part of it. You know, I'm not aiming or anything like that. I'm just putting it on the target and just going through my shot process and shooting. You know, and yeah, so leading up to it, I felt it like I had so much pressure. I wanted to get out there right away. I wanted to make the most out of this hunt, so that's why like I scouted for it, and like I took 2 full weeks to give myself like the best opportunity to, you know, get a mature elk, you know. And leading up to this, I've never killed an elk before. You know, the only thing I've killed is an antelope in Wyoming. I think my second or third year, I shot it with a rifle, and then I shot a coyote here in California a couple years back, and those are the only animals I've ever killed. So it's, and like going into this, like archery's fucking hard. It's hard to kill an animal with a bow. Like it's the hardest thing to do.
Right.
You know, there's hardest way to hunt, but so like with elk in the September time is their rutting time, which is like their mating, where they're looking for females to mate, and they'll do like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with bugling and stuff like that.
it's like a call.
Yeah, so they're making this high pitch.
I watch Meat Eater.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. So they're making this high pitched like noise that's like their way of like attracting females and kind of letting like other elk know where they're at, you know, and kind of displaying their dominance type of stuff. And then like the females are like going into estresses, which is like their time where they're able to like be bred and start making like, you know, babies and stuff. So they're very susceptible to calling. So like and they're only doing that from like the middle of September to towards the end of September. So there's only like a small window where they're doing this. So that's like the benefit of doing archery, is they allow you to do archery during that season, and rifles after that. So they the way they plan out these hunting seasons is like very smart. So like they allow you to do archery when the animals are the most susceptible to, you know, and easiest to find and kill, you know, and then the rifles after. So they want it to be fair for the animal, you know. It's like if you had a rifle during that period, like
It'd be
it'd
easy,
be so
or-
easy, you know. It's not fair for the animal. You just go shoot whatever, you know, and so like they're very susceptible to calling. But like the one thing I learned like the last 2 years in Idaho, which is like I'm very glad I had those tough hunts in Idaho where I didn't kill any elk, and I learned a lot about like navigating and how elk react and stuff, and to calls, and how elk react to like wind and noise. So like there's a couple times in Idaho where I got very close to bulls. Like I got like within, I would say 50 to 60 yards, and I got busted because I made too much noise. And so like the more and I've listened to like hundreds and hundreds of podcasts to try to get like better skills at this and get myself better at hunting. And it's like that thing where you don't really listen to it till you make that mistake yourself, and you know, like, okay, now I know why they
That's
were
what he
saying
meant
that.
by
That's
when
what
he
he
says-
meant. You know, so the thing is, like, I learned a lot of these guys will take their shoes off, their boots off, within like 100 yards of that animal, and they'll finish the stalk like in their socks. Because like when you're in your socks, you're not crunching leaves, you're not breaking branches, you feel the ground better. So like you're not, if you feel like a twig under, you're not going to put the pressure on it to break it. You know, you're able to like, you know, slip in like ninja, you know, like a ninja or something. You know, so like that helped me in this hunt. You know, and like getting the wind right, because a lot of the times there's animal senses are so much better than ours. You know, they have to rely on it to stay alive. You know, they're not like us where we can, you know,
Have cameras and
yeah,
stuff
stuff like that. So we're not having, you know, predators jump on our backs and
Right,
kill
right.
us and stuff. You know, so they smell very good, they hear very good, and they see very good, like a lot farther than we do. So in this hunt, you know, like um, so we went to that original area. We weren't able to find elk, and we hung around there for 2 days. A lot of times we'll go to like these higher points, like on a hillside, where we can use our binoculars and look over a lot of different areas that we think will hold elk. You know, as much like you go to a point where you can see a lot of country, a lot of mountainsides, so you can use your binoculars. And a lot of times it's first light and last light. So we're up like, you know, 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning before the light sun comes up, and we're hiking into our spot where we want to be when the light comes up. So, because most of the time elk and deer are like nocturnal, so like that's your best chance of seeing them is like first light and last light. So you always want to be at your spot before the light comes up. So as soon as you can start like seeing stuff with your binoculars, then you're more likely to see animals. So a lot of times we're doing that to find these animals, you know, and you'll see them every now and then here and there during the day. Like they'll get up and move around a little bit, maybe feed out into some open area. Elk will do it more; they'll feed out into more open areas than deer will, so a little bit easier to see. And then they have like the color in their body is like blonde, so they're a lot easier to see on the hillsides than our deer are like almost gray. So they're very easy to like blend in. Where elk are a lot easier to see because like it's a bigger animal, it has this blonde coat, so it's a lot easier to see like from farther. You can almost see them with your naked eye, and then, you know, with your binoculars, you're picking them out a lot easier. But so the first day and the second day we were up there, you know, trying to glass them up, and we didn't find any. We weren't hearing any bugles. We weren't hearing any calls, and a lot of times they're bugling throughout the night and in the morning because they're moving around more, and so you'll know generally where they are, and you go try to set up on them, you know, after that the next day or whatever. And so we couldn't find them the first 2 days, and there was this backup spot that I wanted to check out that we went to on our scouting trip, but we couldn't get in. We couldn't get in there without having to go through do a bunch of work to get into there. We would have been like when we went scouting, we were to get into this area, we were completely exhausted by the time we came in there. It was like 3 or 4 miles, but it was like bushwhacking, and it was a lot of elevation gain, and yeah. So we're like, you know, when I went into there, that route that I went in during scouting, I was like, dude, this is like we can get in here, but it's not feasible to like kill this animal and bring it out like without worrying about the meat spoiling and stuff like that, because elk are such large animals, you're not just going to kill it and then bring all that meat back in one trip. It's not going to be nonchalant. It's fucking hard work. Like I can say hunting is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, bar none. It's like it's taken me 5 years to get to this point to get my first animal, and it is without a doubt like. And it's not just necessarily this hunt; it's like everything leading up to it, like the skills that I had to get leading up to it, and the experiences going through all those failed hunts where I was out in, you know, Idaho for 7 days, like each one of those trips, and, you know, hiking through those mountains and sleeping in a tent and eating like this backpacking food and like, you know, not being like when you're out there, you're not sleeping very well, you're not eating very well, you're hiking a fuckload of miles, you're high elevation, you know, your legs are sore every day. It's not like an easy thing. It's not like this glamorous thing that Joe Rogan made it out to be. Because a lot of people like, you know, have this idea where like, you know, you're just gonna get a bow, you're gonna start shooting it, and then, you know, you go out there and you arrow this bull, you know,
Right,
and that's it, you know. No, that shit is the learning curve is so fucking steep, especially if you don't have anybody that's to help you.
Right.
Which me
Can
and
imagine.
my buddy Mario, like me and him been in it since day one. You know, we went through this like learning process together, and we didn't have anybody helping us, and like all that is fucking a grind. You know, like dude, everything like sleeping out there fucking sucks. You know, and like sleeping out in the wilderness is like, you know, it's like hard enough to be okay or comfortable at doing that, let alone like being able to perform your best in hiking with all these miles with all this weight on your back. You know, because you have to carry all your gear, all your food out there, like so you're like worn down, you're like not eating the best food, you're high elevation, you know, you're not sleeping good, and you have to go out there and like perform like super well, like hike a lot of miles. And then, you know, when you do get a chance, if you do get a chance, you have to, you know, shoot this animal ideally perfect, you know. And it's not like we're a gun where you can just, you know, you can you're gonna knock down this animal where you shoot it in like a general area of its like heart and lungs, you know, because you kill it when you try to shoot an elk, with the rifle too, like you want to hit it in the heart and lungs where it's like the vitals where it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna die, right? With the rifle, it's more of a trauma type thing where you're hitting it and it's getting this huge amount of damage in that area where it's gonna. A lot of the times they drop dead there, you know, in a couple seconds. Whereas the bow, you have to be a little bit more precise because elk bones are so thick where you have to be like away from his front shoulder because the front shoulder is so thick. Like if you hit it with an arrow, it's just going to get stuck on the shoulder. You're just going to hurt the animal. It's, you know, it's not very ethical, and you're not going to kill it, you know. And so it's like the last thing we want to do is like injure an animal. So like you have to be very precise on where you shoot it. So you go through the ribs and hit it in the lungs. You know, maybe the heart. Like the heart is like, you know, it's a lot smaller than the lungs. So you know, if you shoot in that, I would say it's probably like a 10 to 12 inch like area on elk. You're gonna get the lungs, you know, or the
Mm-hmm.
heart, or maybe you'll get the liver if you're lucky. If you hit it a little bit too far back, like towards its rear, you'll get the liver and it'll still die. So, and it's not gonna die in front of you. You're gonna shoot it and it's gonna run a bit, and you're gonna have to blood track it, and it'll pass away in maybe a couple minutes, you know. So it's very different for a rifle. So it's like when you're taking all those things into account, you know, you have to like, and it's a wild animal. It's not like it's just gonna stay there unless you shoot it. You know, you have to be quiet. You have to draw your bow back at the right time when it's not looking at you because they notice movement like that, right? They'll notice movement like if you move, like they're taking off. It's a wild animal. It's not like these deer that you see or these elk that you see at national park that's or like will, you know, let you walk up with 100 yards of it, you know, not care as they see you from. I've had elk blow out from a half mile away, where like we're walking on a hillside and this group of elk sees us from a half mile away and they take off. You know, that's how good their eyesight is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so like you have to be on. You know, so it's like you spend so much, or I at least most people will spend so much time getting ready for their hunt. Is so like by the time, you know, when they have this opportunity, they can still perform good. You know, like like shoot your bow like when you're fucking exhausted. You know, and be able to hike enough miles to like get, you know, in range of this animal, you know, and then do everything right. So going back to the hunt, like after we kind of decided like that area wasn't good, we hiked into that a lot tougher area, and we tried to go into a different route that would hopefully be easier to get into the elk and get like a bull out if we do get one. Because Nevada's it's a desert, you know, it's a lot hotter. So like if you kill an elk, you're not going to take it out in one trip. It's going to be like 2 to 3 trips. 2 trips if you fucking load up a lot of meat and put more weight in your pack,
Mm-hmm.
and you know bust your ass to
Damn.
get it out, you know. So you risk the chance of the meat spoiling, you know. So like if it's out there in the heat, it's, you know, it could go bad, you know. And then um, in with hunting, you're required to do your best to take out all the meat without it spoiling. You know, you can get a fine, you can lose like your hunting privileges if you don't do your best to get the meat out. So there's like a lot of people like kind of fucking knock hunters, you know, like it's because they're like trophy hunters, are just in it for the antlers and this and that, or they, you know, they kill an animal and just take their head. That's nonsense because that's illegal. You cannot kill an animal and just take the antlers.
Right.
You're required legally to take all the edible meat, and every state's kind of different, but most of the time it's going to be the legs, the back straps, you know, and maybe the tenderloins. But and so you're required to take that meat, and you're required to do your best to get it out without it spoiling, you know. So it's like and like if you if you kill an elk and you leave the meat there, and you get caught for it, you're gonna lose your hunting privileges for like 5 years or something like that. You're gonna get a big fine, and you could possibly serve jail time. So it's not like, you know, this persona that, you know, hunters have, that they're always, you know,
Right.
the
Trophy
bad when they're
hunters.
going out, yeah, trophy hunters, you know, they just want their rack on the wall, you know. But yeah, so you have to take all these things into account when you're like out there, you know. Like, yeah, I could find an elk 6 miles out there, 7 miles out there, but if I kill it, am I gonna be able to like get this meat out like within time before it spoils? And you have to take all these factors into, like, Nevada. It's a hot state, so you're not going to have as much time. Whereas if I'm hunting like
You
Colorado
have a
or
little
like
more time.
maybe, you know, northern Idaho, it's going to be cooler,
Mm-hmm.
so the meat's not going to spoil as bad, right? So I've taken all these things to account, and like we got into this third spot, or the second spot that we went into for the different route, which is a fucking beast too. This other route was a fucking beast. We probably went up like 1,200 feet elevation, which is a fucking lot when you're in the mountains and you're carrying all your gear and stuff, you know. And it was probably like 4 miles in, and we finally found a bull, and or two. We found two bulls and two cows in this area. We glassed them up, and they were still probably about 2.5 miles from where we were at. So like I look at my maps a lot. I look at this app on my phone that shows a lot like your terrain. It could show your distance from like your camp and like the spot where the elk are, you are, you know, so like that, and you can learn to, like, you can navigate terrain better and stuff like that. And so like the area we were at, or like when I found them, like I was probably we were a little too far to get to them that day, because I found them probably like maybe at 2 or 3 o'clock. So like by the time I got to them, it would probably wouldn't have had enough time to put a stock on them or try to call them in. And so we backed out. We went to back to our camp, and we tried to move camps to a different area, to a little bit closer spot to where those elk were. And we tried to try that different route, and it seemed to be better. But like halfway through there, like we're just like, man, we still have like 3 more miles to go, and we're probably like 2.5 miles, and we're just like, with the temperature and where they're at, it's probably not a good idea to kill this elk, because like I said, if you shoot it, it's not with a bow, it's not gonna die right there. Like, especially if you don't shoot it correctly, like, or you shoot it a little far back, like it's probably gonna die. Like, if you get like in its vitals, you get its liver, or it's even if it's guts. Like, if you shoot its guts, it's fucking terrible. It's like the worst death for the elk. You know, it's gonna have like a long drawn out death. But it could go another 2 3 miles, and then you have
You're
to,
stuck.
yeah,
Yeah, it
you're
goes
fucked.
at it. Yeah.
You're gonna have to try to find it for, you know, how many more miles you're gonna have to go, and then you know, and hopefully you'll find it. You know, like with the blood trails and stuff like that, you have to like be able to find like little specks of blood in like the forest. You know, it's fucking hard. You know, there's no part of hunting that's easy. Nothing about it's easy. And so we decided, you know, that's not the best idea. Let's go to, and where we found this elk was a little bit lower in elevation than we'd found the elk scouting. And so we're like, you know, I'm thinking maybe the weather, and like when elk get into that running stage, they typically like flatter terrain stuff, you know, a little bit flatter terrain where there's more, like, we call them benches. So it'd be like you see a mountainside, and then it kind of bench out, and then it'd be like go down again a little bit. So it's like they like that flatter area to do their running activity, where they can sleep, and then they'll, you know, bugle and chase like elk and stuff like that, and or the female elk and stuff like that. So they like that type of stuff during the rut. So I'm looking over the maps and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I think I found this other area, but it's on the complete other side of the mountain, and it had like a lot more Romy Hills type stuff. And when we're scouting, so there was these ag fields that we drove by, and on these ag fields, it's a private land. So you you can only hunt private land if that owner lets you hunt on there. You know, you have a written agreement that, or you'll pay for rights to go onto his land. You know, but if not, you're trespassing. You know, you get hella in trouble for that. But
Yeah.
anyways, so we're scouting, and we're driving by this ag field, and we see these fucking giant elk, and just sitting on this ag field. He's bugling and stuff, or not. This is scouting, but he wasn't bugling. He was fucking huge, and like he's probably the biggest elk I've ever seen. Like, I'm talking about antler wise. Like, antler wise, he had the biggest antlers I've ever seen. You know, on any elk in the wild. You know, with my eyes, like not on like Instagram or
Right.
YouTube. and he has cows and stuff. So I'm thinking like, fuck, it's pretty close. Like this new area is pretty close to that ag field. So maybe like as these elk were rutting, and other elk are rutting in that area, they start move out into the public land. So maybe I'll have a shot at this fucking giant elk. So I'm like, it's a win-win this area. Let's go check it out. So we go to this new area and we go hiking and we're glassing that morning in this area. We can't see any elk. We see sign we see fucking horse sign everywhere. Horses everywhere. So in Nevada, there's a shitload of wild horses. And so like we're glassing up and we'll glass up a horse and or we'll glass up a body. We think, oh, is that an elk. And then they see his tail moving and we go, oh, it's a fucking horse.
Yeah.
And we're seeing horse shit everywhere. And they're just like more horse than elk, and for some reason, and we're like, what the fuck, man? So like we're trying to get away from these horses, and we're looking around, and we glass up this area, and we don't see any elk. So the afternoon, we go, let's go check out this other hillside, and we go to this other hillside, and we're glassing this open area, this open valley, and we're glassing like into the trees. So a lot of the times you'll find like you'll see them like during the day. You'll see them like bedded in the trees. They'll be laying down in the tree side in the shade. So like they're a big animal. They have a lot of fur, so they like to stay cool. So they'll be in the shaded areas. So we're looking in the shaded areas, and then it's probably like maybe 5 or 6 o'clock, and we hear this bugle to like maybe 300 or 400 yards to the right of us, and it's like down the slope because we're on the top of a slope. We're glassing down into this open valley, and we hear him to the right of us, and he's down in this on the lower hill on the lower side of that hill, and we could hear him bugling up towards us. So I'm like, oh shit, there's an opportunity here. So I take my boots off, I sneak over there, and he's kind of hanging up, probably like maybe 100 yards, 200 yards away, and I haven't called to him yet. And he keeps bugling in that area, and I'm like, fuck, like the way the hillside is, it's kind of open, so like I can't really sneak in without him seeing me. Like there's like the sagebrush that was just like probably like, knee high bushes that you maybe can crawl in there, but there's fucking cactus everywhere in Nevada, so like it'd be tough to sneak in. So I'm like, okay, there's like a small patch of trees there, and I try to call to him, and he doesn't respond well. He starts like moving away. He goes down the hill and he bugles, and like I try calling him again, and he's like moving away, bugling. So he doesn't like the calls really. And so I'm like, fuck. And I'm like looking. So that afternoon, I'm like looking at the maps. I'm like thinking like, okay, like I kind of think he's bedded in this area. He's living in this general area because there's like a creek there, and it's a little more. There's like more slopes down there. So I'm thinking he's just living in that area, and he was coming up to feed. Like he'll come out to like eat and stuff like that. So the next day, we can hear him bugling at night. So like we get set up in the morning and we try to follow him a little bit. Like he bugled back down into that canyon, so we try to hike into that canyon where he's bedded at, or we think he's bedded at, and we hike into there, and he's not really bugling. So we're like, okay, let's not push him, because like I've never called in an elk. Like I've never had like called and had an elk like receptive to my calls. A lot of the times, like in Idaho, I call to them and they would start to move off, like the same thing. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I did not feel confident in my calling, because you have to like know what you're saying. Like
Right,
you think
it's
it's
a
like, oh, you
technique.
just make this noise and they're gonna come. No, like because there's a lot of different noises that they make. A lot of different vocalizations. So you have to know what you're saying to them. And like this year, like I really like try to work on my calling, just because I had such a good tag. I'm like, fuck, I gotta learn my calling too. I gotta be in shape. I gotta shoot a lot. So I took like this online course that like it was this game biologist. He had studied elk for like a lot of years, and he had this like very like intricate course that showed you like the ins and outs of it. And so like I was still like having trouble, like, or still didn't have the confidence in my calling yet. So like just because of those past experiences in Idaho, I'm still like, fuck, every time I've called to them, they've moved away. Like I had more success getting close to them, just sneaking up on them. So like when when I knew where this elk was, I'm just gonna try to sneak up on him. And hopefully I'll hear him bugling, and I'll try to slip in on him in my socks. And that morning he wasn't really calling. Like once we got into his area, he wasn't really calling. So we sat on like we found like his rubs. So a lot of the times, like in the rutting area, or in the rut, they'll rake these trees. They'll use their antlers and they'll like whip their head into these trees and like rip up these trees. So you'll see him like throughout the forest, and he's kind of in that general area. And so like we saw his trails, we saw his rubs, and I knew that creek was there. So I'm like, okay, he's probably like this is probably like in his main area. So we're gonna hang out here, and we're gonna wait till he starts bugling in the afternoon, and I'll try to slip in on him. So I think this is the fifth day. So we hung out in the area. We made sure our wind was good, so our wind's not blowing towards him. Because if our wind blows towards him, he's just gonna smell us and bust out. They know like the smell of humans. Like they smell human, they're fucking gone. They'll run miles away. So like we hear him bugling probably like maybe 3 o'clock or so, and we're like, okay, I'm just gonna hang out here, and hopefully he walks that same path where his rubs were, and he'll come that same way he was feeding the day before. And we're hearing like a bugling. We hear some close and some farther. So there's like two bulls like that we're hearing. We're hearing two different elk bugle back and forth, and they're kind of like lazy bugles. They're not like super intense. So we're thinking, oh, he's just waking up, kind of bugling out of his bed. So we're gonna wait for him. So we're waiting there for a couple hours. It's maybe like 4 o'clock now, and we can hear he's getting closer. And then we're like started hearing like his bugling like going a little bit behind us. So we're like, fuck, man, he's going a totally different route. So we're talking to my buddy. I'm like, dude, it's just like I should just probably try to slip in on him. I should just try to go over there in my socks and just try to slip in on him. So I left him with like all my gear, my boots and stuff, and I try to slip in because it's like easier to sneak in one person rather than two. So it's like a lot of the times I'm going on these stalks, I'm going on by myself. I'll throw like my Garmin Messenger and like my phone in my pocket, and then I'll just go like that. And it's just because it's like if you ever backpack on stuff, it's like more stuff rustling around. So you want to like give yourself the best odds and the best chance of getting in there. So like I try to cut him off. So like he's basically going this way, and I'm trying to like slip around and get ahead of him, which is fucking hard because like they're such big animals. They move so much faster than we do, especially in the mountains. Like they just like it's almost impossible to catch up with them. So like I'm sneaking in and I'm trying to be quiet. So I'm walking slow too. I'm like watching my steps the whole route in my socks and stuff. And I'm finally I'm not hearing him bugling, but I get to the edge of these trees, and there's this valley, or I guess like a little canyon, a little small canyon, and then I know there's a creek in the bottom of it. So I'm like, fuck, he's probably going towards that water, and it's open. The creek's open, but there's like a little bit of trees here and there, so it's a little bit more broken up. So I'm like towards the end of it, and then I hear him bugle down there. I hear his bugle come from the bottom of that canyon. Oh fuck, he's right there. He's like 200 plus yards away. So I get to the end of the trees, and I finally make eye contact with him. Like I've only heard him this whole time. I've never seen him. So then I finally see him, and he's drinking water and he's bugling in this fucking thing. And it's like, if you like seeing him bugle is like, and being like in his natural environment, it's like, it's fucking crazy. It's like he hasn't noticed me. My wind's good. I can see him doing his elk thing. He's like rubbing his antlers in the brush and stuff, and drinking water and then bugling. And so what I do is there's like a lot of, there's trees here and there. So I get a tree in like the line of our sight. So he can't see me anymore, but I know he's right there. So it's like, if I can't see him, he can't see me. Right. So I put the tree like right in front of between us. And then I use the tree to like sneak up closer to him. So so I get like closer to him, and he's still about 200 yards away. So really far for you to like shoot with a bow. This whole period, like the whole training period or leading up to it, I was shooting out to like 100 yards, and that's just for practice. That's just to get myself better. I would never shoot an animal at 100 yards, just because it takes so long for that arrow to get there, and you're not as accurate. Like you want to be able to shoot like pretty precise within like they say like the vitals are within like 10-12 inches, but when you have nerves going, you're tired,
Right.
and you're in the mountains and you're on uneven terrain and stuff, your lethal distance is a lot closer. I would say like I'm pretty proficient out to like 80 yards. I can shoot within like that 10-inch circle, right? Or even there was a couple times when I'm shooting at 100 and I'm shooting like 3 arrows into that 100-yard group, or into that 100 or to that 10-inch circle. But that's like not all the time, and I'm like a fresh. I'm on like flat terrain, and like I don't have the nerves of a live animal there, because like you're gonna like you feel some of that pressure. You're gonna make some mistakes, and So like I would say my lethal range, like where I feel confident shooting, is 50 yards and in, you know, and that's with perfect conditions. That's with if the elk is standing completely sideways on me, you know, because like that's with a bow, you want the elk standing completely sideways with you, so you have like the best, the most area to shoot his lungs.
Like
Because
a center of mass.
yeah, yeah. So the more he's angled, which either way, that circle gets smaller, right? So the more you torque it, the more like it's more narrow it
Yeah.
is, right? And like if you're closer, it's a little bit better to have him facing a little bit away from you, because his heart and lungs are like sitting more in like his closer to the front of his shoulders. So you have like, and there's only from the shoulders back, there's only ribs and then body, right? So you're going out of more of like an angle where you're gonna get like more of his lungs and
So it's
heart,
like
right?
through here.
Yeah, basically you're shooting him this
Yeah,
way
this way.
rather than shooting
Yeah,
him this way.
like trying to shoot him this way.
Yeah, shooting them up this way, like they say, cordon away is a little bit better with a bow, just because you have like less bone and less chances of hitting that front shoulder, because that front shoulder is just like solid mass, right? So I would say 50 yards in is pretty, um, is probably where I feel comfortable, where I know even if like I'm not shooting my best that day, or I'm not shooting my best in that situation, I can still get in the, you know, the vitals, right? As long as he's broadside, right? So it's like it's not just like getting close to him and getting in bow range. Like it's a wild animal. It's not like he's just gonna sit there
Right,
broadside
just
for
sit
you.
there, yeah.
He's gonna do whatever he wants, you know. So he could be facing you.
He's gonna elk.
Yeah, yeah, he could be facing you, and you can never get a shot. And like, you know, it's not like you're just gonna fling an arrow at him. It's just gonna hit him, and it's not gonna kill him. You know, you're just gonna fucking wound him and hurt him, which is like a total dick move. You know,
Right.
it's like, you know, we want to like be the most ethical. You know, it's like part of hunting is like, you know, is like like nowadays, like, you know, factory farming is just the way we have to do things. And it's like if you look at the lives of those type of animals, it's fucking horrible, you know. Horrible way to like have these animals like live, and then the way they kill them and stuff. And like you can go on YouTube and find videos of like these animals getting like slaughtered while they're still alive and shit, you know, where they're still like feel pain, you know, where they're still like, you know, very unethical ways to like get meat, you know. So it's like as a hunter, it's like part of the reasons why we hunt is to give like the animal like the most ethical death, you know, where it's like most of the time, like until he gets hit by the arrow, he's living his best life, you know, and then he's dead in a couple seconds. Ideally, you know, that's what you want. You know, you want this animal to live a perfect wild life, and then hit him with the arrow,
And then you kill him.
then you hit him with the arrow, and he's, you know, you're giving him like the best death he could possibly get, you know, because on the other natural way for him to die is
Ripped
he,
apart.
he's ripped apart by an animal while he's alive. You know, he's getting ripped apart by a bear, ripped apart, or getting, you know,
Eaten
killed
by a mountain lion.
or in a very small percentage, he's gonna live long enough
To die of old age.
and die of an old age is starving to death because his teeth get so worn that he's not able to eat.
Yeah.
And he starves to death, or he gets so weak that in the winter when it snows, he freezes to death. Horrible fucking ways to die, slow, agonizing ways to die, you know? So it's like if you're giving him that death by an arrow is like better death than he could ever have out there, you know, if you do it the right way, you know? If you're getting that perfect shot on him, which is, you know, what we all strive for. And so like I'm in 200 yards from him. I'm still behind that tree, and like I'm using my binoculars to try to like peek in. I'm just like barely getting my head outside the bush so I can see him. And I see him starting to move up the other side. So I'm on one side of the canyon and he's on the other side of the canyon, and he was in the middle where the creek was. And so he starts moving up a little bit, and I'm like, fuck, he's like moving slowly away. And like I said, it's like impossible to catch up to him once they start moving.
Right.
And he's bugling and he's feeding. And I'm like, fuck, man. So I have like this mouth reed call, this like little half circle thing that goes on your tongue, and that's what a lot of people will use, that one. And I try to call to him because I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna catch it to him. Might as well try to call him,
Right.
because you know if he doesn't call, like he's already going away, you know. And if I call him back to me, fucking awesome. Either way, he's already going away. So I call to him, and with that one, he doesn't fucking like it. Like he's like makes a weird noise, and he starts moving a little more up the hill, and then at the very top of the hillside, it's thick trees. So he gets into the trees. And I'm like, fuck, I have another call. It's like an external read. It's called an external read. So you put it on your lips and you're more blowing. It almost looks like I don't know if you guys ever seen duck calls, or like, or we would say like, it's like the end piece of a clarinet. You know, it has like that little tapered piece, and you put your lips on it. So it looks like that. and it's used to make like the female elk sounds, and you can make different kind of sounds. So what I do is like I make the sound of like a lost cow, like of a lost elk, and then he starts bugling back. So he as soon as I made it, he bugled back, and he whipped his head and started looking at me or looking towards me, and he's like still bugling, but he was already like kind of in his route to these trees. So he still like goes into the trees, and he starts bugling more. And so I'm giving him the lost cow sound, and he's like bugling. I can tell he's liking it because he's starting to bugle more consistent and more aggressive, and he's kind of like pacing in there, and I can't see him, but I can hear him, like his bugles moving. So I'm probably going back and forth with him for maybe like 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. And it's so hard to remember because this is like all like adrenaline,
Right.
like I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm actually like interacting with this animal, I'm like thinking he's like making him think that I'm a cow. So I'm like trying to focus, but it's like this is all so new to me, like this is all like a learning lesson. And so, like after a couple of minutes, he pops out again. So I'm like watching with the binoculars, and I see him pop out again, and he's like facing this way, and he bugles. And so then I give him this different call, and it's called like an assembly. It's basically telling him to like come meet me over here,
Come through 2
Come,
a.m.
yeah, come over here. So I give it to him, and he's just loving it, dude. He starts coming down, like he's slowly, like he's a little receptive. He's like not moving super fast, but he's going like he starts walking a little bit down, and so I'm going back and forth with him, giving him the assembly calls, and like there's this one point where he just like because I'm watching him through the binoculars still, with the corner, I'm barely peeking out, and I give him this one call where the assembly call, and he just puts his head down because his head's up like this, and then he puts his head down and he just starts cruising towards me, and there's like brush and trees down there, so like I'm like, fuck, I got him coming towards me, I got him, pretty
Yeah.
much like it's actually working, and so I lose him in the bottom there, and I can hear him. He's making bugles, and he's making this. I will never forget this. It's like this weird, like it's almost like a whimper. Like he's so full of testosterone, like ready to like bone this cow. He's just like I can't even imitate it, but it's like this whimper, and it's fucking like, dude, I'll never forget it. And like, dude, this guy is just fucking jacked up on testosterone. They're like fuming at the lips like during this period. Like they're like drooling and shit, and they're like peeing on
Yeah.
themselves and stuff.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, they're like ready to bone because it's like the only time of the year they're
It's-
like allowed to bone,
Yeah.
or able to. And like if you've never heard a bugle, like you can hear it on like videos and stuff like
Right.
that, but like when you're there, dude, it's like a 700-800 pound animal, and their lungs are huge and shit, and like you can feel that shit in your body, dude. Like I'm like 60 yards, 70 yards away from him now, and like he's bugling, and you can fucking feel the intensity of it, And it's this fucking large ass animal making these noises.
And on
It's
top
like,
of that, you have adrenaline. Like
yeah,
pumping through
myself,
you.
and I'm like standing behind this tree with my bow, and so like the way I set up on him, like I set up on him where like my wind is like good, it's going towards like kind of towards my left over my shoulder, and I'm behind, like I'm alongside this tree, and and there's like some other like broken up trees like in front of me, and then there's some other trees that are like 50 yards away, so there was like a little gap for him to walk through, and I would have had like a 50 to probably to like 30 yards, like there's like probably like 30 yards to 50 yards of like that gap where
Like
he
an
would
ideal setting for you to
yeah,
to hit him.
where ideally he would have walked through. Like this is where I'm trying to get him to walk through. It's like part of it's like your setup. Like if he sees you, he's gonna know something's up. He knows, like they're hearing so good that if you call, they'll know exactly where that call is coming from within feet. So you have to be set up, and like he can see, like if you're like in this open area and you call to him, he can see you.
Yeah.
He's gonna know where it's at. So you try to give yourself some cover or like this opening of like these trees. So like when he's able to see you, he's in archery distance. Because he as soon as he's able to see where that call comes from, he's gonna stop and like look for another elk, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna look for a body of an elk, and if he doesn't see something there, he's gonna know something's up, and then he's gonna take off, right? Or I mean, maybe he'll come in, but most of the time he's gonna take off, right? So like I set that up as my setup as where I thought he was gonna come from, right? And so like I hear him bugling, making all these noise, and he's like fucking breathing super heavy, and I can hear his steps. Like, and dude, it's such a trip how quiet they can walk, because I can barely hear like the pebbles of like this is a 700-800 pound animal, and he's like barely making any noise with his steps. The only reason I can hear him is because he's like huffing and he's bugling, and he's making those whimpering noises, and he's making all this. I'm like, fucking, this is so fucking intense, right? And so like there was one point where he was at that 30 to 50 yards where I thought he was going to walk through, And so I pull back my bow, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna walk through right now. And when I pulled back, I was a good thing I did is because I was like super close to that tree on my left. So I'm like alongside it, and it's on my left. I'm looking this way, and I'm waiting for him to come out, right? And so I'm too close to this tree. I'm like, dude, I'm fucking too close. Like if he moves, like it goes a different direction, I need to draw down. So like I feel like he's walking towards my left more. I'm like, fuck, like it's in the back of my mind. Like he could go left, but I want him to go this way. So like in my mind, I want him to go this way, but it's elk. He's gonna do whatever the fuck he wants, you know. And which is probably smart because he's probably trying to come upwind to smell me. You know, he's coming up to that side where the wind will come down on me. He's trying to, like a lot of times they say is they'll try to circle upwind to you so then they can smell like what, like if it's really an elk, right? And so like since I drew back my bow and like I knew I was too close to that tree, which fucking saved my ass. Like later on, I drew down and because he didn't pop out, and I take a couple steps back away from that tree. So I was like, I gave myself a little bit better. So now I have clearance, like whether if he comes behind me, like I could flip around and shoot, right? So I'm still thinking he's going to come out to my right side. And then eventually, like I can hear his steps and his breathing to my left. And I'm like, holy fuck, he's going to come out right behind me. And it's like, you know, it's going to be a couple steps from me. So I already drew my bow back and I'm still like kind of thinking he's going to come to my front. And and then I hear his steps and his breathing like fucking 5-10 yards away from he. And it's like, I was like, holy fuck. And my adrenaline's going right now. So I fucking flip around and I'm pointing my bow to the other side now. Because like you don't want to draw your bow back when they're in front of them because they'll see the movement and they'll run. So you draw your bow back and it's like you're holding all this weight of the bow. It's fucking hard to hold the weight, you know. And so I draw back and I turn towards that other side and there's like 5 seconds later, he walks out half his body and then he turns his head to look at me, and I was like, dude, I was like, okay, it's too fucking late, you know, like he already see me too late. So like I put my pin. So like the way archery sight is like there's like these 5 pins that you have, or most sight, mine does, have 5 pins, and it correlates to goes 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 for, and
like a little rangefinder.
Basically, yeah. So you have a rangefinder, but like
what are they called?
they're pins, and so like you'll use one for each different yardage. So if he's like at 40 yards, you put your 40-yard pin. So basically, you're like canting your bow up to like to change the angle of the bow for the arc of the arrow, right? Because the arrow's going like that. So basically, that's what you do, right? And so, like I said, I've been practicing out to 100 yards, and like I feel like pretty good out to like 50, 60, where I can kill this elk, you know. And this guy comes in at 5 yards, so like he's right there, and I'm drawing back on him. Like I don't even have to use my pin. I put like my whole circle, my housing, like right on his lungs, and I was like, too late, dude. Bam! I shot the arrow, and as soon as it hits him, he takes off. And like I'm looking to see if like hopefully I didn't hit shoulder blade, you know. Like I look to see if the arrow's sticking out, and I didn't see any arrow, and he took off into the trees, and he took off running like he sprinted, and like the whole time like holy fuck, like this is like. He's a huge animal, you know, with his head alone is taller than me, and then let alone his antlers. And it's like he's fucking 5 yards away from me, like so close where like I didn't even have to like aim almost, you know, I didn't have to aim with any of my pins. I just had to put my housing and my sight onto his vitals, and I shot. And so like usually you want to give him like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on where you shot him, to die, you know, like you shot him in his lungs. You don't want to like start chasing them right away because they still have adrenaline, and they're fucking tough animals where like even if you hit them in one lung, they could run for like a mile or so and then die. And you know, you don't want to have like this really long or tracking job. So like I back out, I take a picture of where I am or where I shot him at, and then I log on my maps where I shot him at too. So then I go back and get my buddy. It's probably like 30 or 40 minutes, you know. And I'm like fucking, you know, still hyped off this thing, you know, still have all of my adrenaline going. I get my buddy, we go back to our spot, and I show him everything, tell him everything that happened, you know, and then I look for my arrow. So like you want to like see if your arrow's like intact, you know, sometimes like if you hit bone, like it'll be broken, like
shattered to the...
broken at pretty close to like not very,
went through.
no, yeah, and so like the arrow, I find my arrow, it's completely covered in blood. And it's fucking perfect. It looks brand new. Like the blades are like a little warped, so like it went through, like maybe touched a little bone or something. But the arrow's perfect besides the blood. So I'm like, oh, what's perfect pass through? But so we started looking for blood, and like we find his tracks, and we started looking for blood, and we can't find any fucking blood where we thought he went through. And we looked where his tracks were leading up, and so we go probably like a half mile in there, And I shot him at like 5:50 in the afternoon. So like it was getting dark, like around 7:30. It was like pitch dark. So I'm kind of tripping. Like we had heard coyotes before the nights before, so we're like, fuck, I don't want the coyotes to find his body or anything and start eating them and stuff. And the whole time like we can't find blood, and I'm like I had my adrenaline going, so I'm like, did I really do what I thought I did? Did everything like play out like the way I thought it was? Because it's so fast. He walked out and then I shot him and he took off running. Did I really shoot him like as good as I thought I shot him? And I'm looking around and I'm kind of like tripping. It's getting dark. I'm like, fuck, man. And it's like again, like you don't want to make a bad shot at an animal and like have him suffer. So that's like going through my head too. And after a while, it's like I don't know, almost 7 o'clock. I'm like, dude, let's just go backtrack to like where we were, or go to where I shot him, and let's go a different route and let's see if we can find him again. So we do, and I'm still like kind of stressing. We put our headlamps on because it's getting darker, and we start going like a little bit more like alongside the canyon that I was at. And then I see blood, and I'm like, fuck, it's fucking blood. I finally found blood. And my buddy's like, dude, look, there he is right there. And he was dead like 40 yards away. So he ran like 100 yards from where I shot him from. And so he probably died in like 30 seconds.
Oh, damn.
That's good.
So it's like, ultimately, it was like the perfect experience. And like going back to like this unit is known for having like these huge ass antlered elk. And I definitely didn't shoot the biggest antlered elk. I shot like an elk I could probably shot in Idaho, but like for me, like I've never killed an elk before, and I was just like happy to like have that whole scenario play out, like being able to call him in, and getting an opportunity to shoot an elk is like something I've never had. It took me 5 years to even draw my bow back on an elk rather than even being able to kill one. So I'm like, I don't want to mess up on this opportunity, like having everything play out. And like, cause I don't know if later on down, cause I was planning to go for 12 days, but I don't know within those other 7 days if I was even going to get another opportunity. So I'm like, for me, I'm just happy to have like my first elk, have that whole experience play out the way it did, and then like be able to like kill that elk, like, the way I should have killed it. And like, I think like for me, it's not necessarily so much the antlers looking back on it. It was that whole experience and like everything that I learned from that experience that's going to carry me like longer in my hunting career than having a huge ass rack on my wall. It was like learning everything, like that calling, like building confidence in my calling, like making sure like my whole setup was right. Making a good shot on an animal, being able to blood track right, and doing everything. Those are all experiences that are going to carry me like into my next hunts, and like, because I'm going to do this for as long as I physically can, so it's like that experience is, and like all those little details and everything, the way they happened, I feel like is going to help me longer, being able to pack that bull out, like getting all that meat, bringing all that meat back home, and it's just like was a experience that like I'll never forget, and it's like eventually like I have meat for a whole fucking year, like I have some of the best meat on the planet for the rest of this year, but like those antlers are gonna last longer, and it's gonna have like, that's why like a lot of people like we have antlers on their wall. It's like not necessarily for how big it is, it's more for that whole experience, like when I tell people about it, I could show them the bull, and I could, with my buddy, he helped me like pack it out, and it was like, so I recovered that bull like 7 o'clock. We found him, and then we skinned him out. Skinning him out and getting all the meat in bags and stuff like that, and getting ready to pack out was 5 hours. It took us 5 hours just to do that part alone.
And that was at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, so midnight we were done.
Damn.
We're done cutting them up, right? So like, and we're with our headlamps and we're with our knives and stuff, cutting them out, skinning them out, and then we didn't start packing them out till midnight. By the time we got all the meat, we got to do 3 trips back and forth from where we shot him to where the truck was and the ice chests were. We didn't get back to the trucks till 3:30 in the morning, and this is like, we're walking with our headlamps with all this meat on our back. It's like 80 plus pounds of meat each trip, and we're walking like through rocks and brush with our headlamp to where the truck was, and we're using like our apps on our phone to like kind of guide us, And so it's a fucking beast, dude. It's a fucking beast, dude. No doubt about it. So it's like finding him and killing him was hard. Then skinning him out was fucking hard. Like breaking him down is a fucking beast. And then packing him out is a fucking beast. There's like no easy part about it. It's like 100% earned, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like now I have like all that meat that's earned, and it's like the antlers on the wall, like something I could show my friends or my family.
Reminder.
And, like, reminder of like what I went through, and like, you know, it's kind of like, I guess like a memorial or like something to memorize that bull with too. Cause like, again, like I killed it, you know, I watched it die, you know, like, or you know, I'm the one who killed it, you know? So it's like a little more different than like going to the store. It's like, you know, and buying meat, and it's like, they say it's like everybody kills animals, right? Like whether you're hunting it yourself or you're just paying with your checkbook, you know, by you buying that meat is like, you're basically green lighting somebody in a factory to kill an animal, right? So it's like whichever way you want to do it, there's like meat, there's like ways on your hand or blood on your hands for, you know, but like I think the way the hunters do it is like definitely the most ethical and like the most, I guess, honorable way, you know, to do it, because you're like,
that's a good word.
you're watching, you're doing the part, you're doing the dirty work, you know, you're not paying somebody else to do the dirty work, you know, like you're there, like I had to see the animal live, I had to see the animal dead, you know, I seen the result of what I did, like to, or what I need to do to like feed myself, you know, and then doing that work to get it out is like kind of like me paying back something to it, you know, to um, like like you're leaving a little something on there. You're leaving a little bit of yourself on there, like the work ethic, and you're leaving a little piece of you of how much you had to put in there on that mountain. You know, like it takes a little bit. It takes some out of you, dude. You know, it's like for the couple of days after that, I was burnt the fuck out.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah,
leave
yeah.
something on there. You know, it's like no doubt about it. Like it's definitely the hardest way to get meat, but it's fucking the most rewarding. You know,
Right.
and it's like getting into this is like, you know, we all pretty much, like, I think like 99% of people who like have interest in hunting get it from Joe Rogan, right? Like, you know, you get that, like, you know, he's the one who talks about it, we all listen to him, and then he talks about it so much. And um, it's funny because like he glamorizes it so much that it makes it seem like, oh, this mystical beautiful thing, you know. And it's not, dude. It's not mystical. It's not. I don't think it's beautiful. It's 100% gritty and tough. Like there's no part about it that's easy. And like I recommend, like you have to think like Joe Rogan has,
Shit ton of money.
yeah, and he also has the best people helping him
Right.
out. And he's, for where he's hunting, like you
Private
see his
land,
hunts and
right?
stuff.
There's
He's paying like $40,000 to $50,000 for that tag to hunt on that land, you know. And so it's like not feasible for very many of us to have an
Right.
experience like that every year, you know. And so like in public land, you're gonna be hiking a lot of miles with your stuff on your back, and you're gonna fucking suffer to get that animal, and you're gonna have a lot of years of not being successful. Like on public land, the success rate for archery elk is like 10%. So that means like out of 10 years or 10 years, you're only gonna kill one elk, you know. And so it goes like back to this experience. Like I could have killed a bigger elk, but I beat the odds by shooting that elk on my third year archery elk hunting. You know,
Right, yeah.
like I beat the odds. So
If
like,
you hit another one within 10, you're
yeah,
you're-
you know,
you're-
beating the
you're-
odds,
yeah,
you
you're
know.
doing
So
good.
like, yeah, and like, dude, like going back to it, it's like, with like the whole Rogan thing is like, dude, like you shouldn't like Rogan may inspire you to hunt, but like you should like look at like the public land type hunters, like their experiences rather than his experience hunting, if you really want to get into it, because
Right.
they're going to be honest with you. And like the podcasts I listen to now are more like public land type hunters, because that's what I don't make enough money to just pay $40,000 or
Private land,
$50,000 in hunting.
yeah, to
So
do private land.
yeah, yeah, you know, I don't have friends that have private land in other, you know, states
Right.
that like allow me to hunt either, you know. So like I do it the, you know, the public land do it yourself type way, and most of us are, if you are going to get into it, that's the way you're going to do it. So it's like you should go into it with like honest expectations that you're not going to be successful for quite a long time. But I mean, that's okay. That's like part of the process. That's like how you learn, and that's how you get like these skills, like long-term skills. Like I'm sure Joe Rogan is a good hunter. He knows how to shoot like an elk when he should shoot it. But does he have like those backcountry skills, like those do-it-yourself skills to like be successful on public land? Maybe not. I mean, I would argue to say that he doesn't, you know. But there's a lot of other better hunters than him that have killed like smaller elk than him, or not as big antlered elk than him. There are much better elk hunters, and like if you put them in the same situation, they would do a better job. But just because they have those skills of being hunting these tougher to hunt animals and these tougher to hunt places, make them a better hunter. and it's kind of like you have to be okay with like that that grind of being unsuccessful for a long period of time, and knowing like eventually that success is going to happen, or that's you're gonna get better at it. Basically, you're not gonna be ever an expert. It's like jujitsu, dude. Like like how many years did it take you to not get your ass kicked?
Right. Yeah.
You went to training for
Years.
how long of getting your ass kicked every fucking day
I still do.
and you still and
It
it's
takes
dude,
years.
like,
It takes years.
I'm a black belt, and it's like I've been training for how many years, but there's some days like I get my ass kicked, and it's like it's like you just get a little bit better, you understand things a little bit more, and it's like you have to get your ass kicked to understand these concepts. It's like you could watch all these YouTube videos and like watch all this instructional, but until you go through that situation of that technique, it's not gonna hit you as why you're actually doing it. You're not gonna learn the lesson as to why you're doing it. And that's kind of like how it like correlates to like hunting. And I think that's why like I've been able to be like I guess successful longer and like be okay with not being successful like so many years, and then like being able to like make it happen now. And like it's like yeah, it's just like jiu-jitsu, it's like the jiu-jitsu I think helped me those skills I learned in jiu-jitsu helped me like translate into hunting, like having that mental perseverance,
Like the patience.
Yeah, the patience, the mental perseverance to like grind through it for a long
The
period
ego.
of time. Yeah, it's for sure. Like now that I've been doing jiu-jitsu for so long, and like, I mean, I guess I could say I'm like a pretty expert level because I'm at black belt, I guess. But like I can say that hunting is harder than jiu-jitsu, just because there's no checkout in hunting. You can't check out when you're on the mountains. Like you can, but you're going to have to drag yourself out of the mountains. Nobody's going to come get you when you're out there. Once you sign up and you're like 4 or 5 miles in there, you can't just like tap out and go sit on the bench the rest of the class.
Right.
You have to stay out there, like, and it's like an all day grind. It's a 24-hour grind. The hunting part's hard. The eating part sucks. The sleeping part sucks. The pack out sucks. The cutting the animal up sucks. It's all fucking hard. There's a 7+ day grind, whereas like jiu-jitsu is like 2 hours. It's fucking hard. Don't get me wrong, jiu-jitsu is fucking hard, but I think hunting's harder for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Cory.
Yeah.
Thank you, dude.
Sorry,
Thank
man,
you,
I
brother.
ran-
No, you're
I
good.
ran-
It's good.
It was
It's all
super
good.
detailed. I was like,
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
he's
man.
telling a fucking story. And
Yeah,
I just wanted to hear it though.
Yeah.
Because I know you told me a little bit of it, but it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
you told
it
me
was
a
like
little.
the 5-minute version.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
one was like, you're like, I
That's
had to
good.
take off my shoes. And
Yeah, man. I fucking stepped on a cactus one day. I think the fourth
Oh,
day I fucking
bro.
stepped on a cactus in my socks. Holy fuck, dude, that
Damn.
shit sucked. But it's just like, it's all part of it, man. It's all part of like the grind, and like making yourself. I mean, again, like
To be good at it, it's gonna
earning it,
be a grind.
earning
Yeah.
it. I would say, there's
For
like,
sure.
like we go on like especially like nowadays, it's like everybody. You can portray yourself whatever way you want to, like on social media or whatever, make yourself to be this athlete or like, like you're into hunting or something. You know what I mean? Like there's influencers in hunting that like never killed like an elk before. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, yeah.
But
yeah.
like in like jiu-jitsu too is like it's like an honest thing, like you get what you put in, like you can portray yourself whatever way you want, but as soon as we step on the mats, like
Yeah.
we know like whether
yeah,
you
you'll
are
eventually
Right.
see.
you'll
You already
eventually
say you
see,
are.
or like especially with hunting,
That's why I
like
don't like posting
you'll
anything.
you'll be successful if you put the time in, like you know what I mean?
Put in the work. Yeah,
It's
no,
like the
yeah.
honest type thing,
Yeah. It's honest. That's the
Yeah.
right word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any closing statement any shout outs you want to give out
Yeah,
there?
no, man. I mean, thank you guys for having me on
No,
here.
thank
It's
you.
like
Thank you for coming on.
sharing my story.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. Thank you,
You know,
brother.
when we were talking, we're like, he just had the hunt. I was like, I can't wait to hear that.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was
yeah,
like, oh, we're
yeah.
gonna catch him right after the hunt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's too funny. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank
It
you,
was a
Cory.
grind, man.
Thank you,
Thank you
brother.
guys, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say, Fabian? You're good.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Just
All right.
congratulations on your hunt. I know.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I know you've been talking about it. I remember when you got the tag, you were just like,
Yeah.
happy.
the funniest thing is like they took all this money out.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god, it's like such a rare tag that I had to like I had to like double check like 3 or 4 times that I actually I really got it. You
qualified
know,
now.
I really was, really got the tag.
You're like, oh, they took out. I forgot what it was.
Yeah.
I know it was up there. You're like, damn, they took all this money out,
Yeah,
but I got the tag.
It was like $1,200
Yeah.
for the tag, but I mean, it was fucking worth it.
Yeah, but think
Yeah,
about it,
it's worth
$1,200 for meat for a whole year.
Yeah. It is worth it, man. It's worth it. Something I know now. Like I'm gonna do it for as long as I can. You know.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. I
Well,
think that.
thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching. Catch us on the next Stick Boy
Yeah.
Mafia podcast.
Yeah.
Man.
Thank you.
Peace.
Guys.